through the dark, dusty roads of Rostov, where the withered trees stretched toward the sky like the dead hands of forgotten souls, a man with round glasses and a sparse beard walked. His clothes were ordinary. His face was ordinary. But behind that vacant stare, a monster lived. One that became the nightmare of every mother in the Soviet Union for 12 long years. This is the story of Andrei Chikatilo, a man whose name history remembers as the Butcher of Rostov, a man who killed 53 people, most of them children and young women. He lured them into the woods, tortured them, and took their lives with his own hands. This video takes you inside the mind of the darkest serial killer in the Soviet Union. You'll hear how a school teacher turned into a monster that even the KGB's secret police couldn't track down for years. You'll hear the last screams of his victims. You'll see how he hunted in the silence of the night. And you'll find out what turned this ordinary man into one of the scariest killers in history. Brace yourself, because this journey is into the darkness, where humanity loses its meaning. Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo was born on October 16th, 1936, in a small village called Yablochnoi in Soviet Ukraine. The world he entered was a world of hunger, a world of war, a world of death. The years of his childhood were the very years when Stalin's brutal policies caused millions to starve to death in Ukraine. His mother, Anna Chikatilo, told him he had an older brother named Stepan, a brother Andrei never met. His mother would tearfully tell the story of how Stepan was stolen by neighbors during the Great Famine and eaten. Cannibalism. This story might not have been true. Maybe it was just a myth his mother made up to explain the disappearance of her lost child. But to little Andrei, it was real. He would wake up at night from nightmares of his brother being eaten. In his mind, the image of a mutilated child's body haunted him. The deep fear that he too might be eaten. This fear, this image, settled in his mind and never let go. His father, Roman Chikatilo, joined the Soviet army in World War II and was captured by the Germans. When he came back after the war, he was not the same man. The Soviet Union looked at those who had been captured as traitors. Roman was humiliated, couldn't find decent work, and became a chronic alcoholic. He would come home drunk at night and beat Andrei's mother. Little Andrei would sit in the corner of the room, watching. The sound of his mother's screams, the sound of his father's fists, the sound of breaking things. He never said anything. He just watched. He was learning what violence was. He was learning what power was. At school, Andrei was a weak child. He was short, thin, wore glasses. The other kids made fun of him. They beat him. They mocked his voice. He could never defend himself. Inside him, anger began to stir, an anger that never went away. He was alone, always alone. He had no friends. No one reached out to him. No one wanted him. He turned to books. He turned to his studies. He decided he would become strong, but not with muscles, with knowledge. He wanted to be a teacher. He wanted respect. He wanted power. But there was another problem that plagued him his whole life. Andrei couldn't have a normal sexual relationship. He had erectile dysfunction. When he became a teenager and tried to get close to a girl, he failed. The girl laughed. His friends found out and mocked him. This failure, this humiliation. At 19, Andrei attacked for the first time. He followed a young girl in the village, caught her, and tried to force himself on her. But again, he failed. His body didn't work. But in that moment, as the girl struggled and screamed, as she tried to escape, Andrei felt something awaken inside him. Excitement, motivation, something he had never experienced before. He realized that the fear of others turned him on. The pain of others brought him to life. And for the first time in his life, he felt power. Andrei went to university and graduated. He became a teacher. In 1963, he married a woman named Feodosia. He met Feodosia through her sister. Feodosia was a simple woman, a woman who just wanted a normal life. To her, Andrei was a respectable man, a teacher, a kind person. They got married, but their marriage had problems from the very beginning. Andrei still couldn't have a normal sexual relationship. Feodosia didn't understand what the problem was. She thought maybe it was her fault. Andrei never told the truth. He stayed silent. And in that silence, the darkness inside him grew. They had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Andrei was a cold father. He never showed affection. He never hugged them. He wasn't present at home. Even when he was there, his mind was always elsewhere. At school, he was a teacher of literature and Russian language. His students found him to be a strange teacher. Sometimes he would get too close to his female students. He'd put his hand on their shoulder, stand too close. Complaints were made against him. Parents said he behaved inappropriately. He was moved from school to school several times, but he was never officially fired. Because he had a degree, because the Communist Party had made him a member, because he appeared to be a good man. But inside, the monster was growing. Andrei would go out at night. He'd go to bus stations, to parks, to places where children were alone. He watched them. He followed them. He'd plan in his mind. He hadn't acted yet, but he knew one day he would. It was snowing. Andrei saw her. He followed her, got close, and said, "Sweetie, aren't you cold? Let me give you a ride home. It's safer." Lana looked at him. He was a teacher. He wore glasses. He smiled. He seemed kind. She said, "No thanks. Home is close." Andrei said, "But the way's really..." Andrei took her to a small, run-down cabin near the river. A place where no one was around. A place where there was no sound. When they entered, Lena noticed the cabin was cold. There was no heat. She said, "It's even colder in here." Andrei locked the door. Lena got scared. She said, "I want to go." Andrei looked at her, a look that was no longer kind. He said, "You're not going anywhere." Lena began to scream. Andrei put his hand over her mouth. He threw her to the ground. Lena struggled, but she was small. She was weak. Andrei was stronger. He ripped her clothes off. He tried to assault her, but he failed again. His body didn't work. The rage inside him flared, the anger that had been building for years. He pulled a knife from his pocket, a small knife, but sharp. Lena closed her eyes and screamed, "No, please, no." Andrei looked at her. For the first time in his life, he felt satisfied. He felt powerful. He felt in control. He realized that when he plunged the knife, his body responded. For the first time in his life, he felt like a complete man. And this feeling, this moment, changed everything. He knew he would do it again. He had to. Andrei left Lena's body in the cabin and left. He went home, washed his hands, changed his clothes, sat on the couch, and turned on the TV. Feodosia called from the kitchen. "Dinner's ready. Come eat." Andrei said, "I'll be right there." He smiled. A calm smile, as if nothing had happened. The next day, Lena's body was found. The entire village was shocked. The police began investigating, but they had no leads, no witnesses. Andrei had left no trace. He was a teacher, a party member, well known. No one even considered he could be the killer. The police arrested an alcoholic with a criminal record and forced him to confess. That man, innocent, was executed, and Andrei remained free. Free to kill again. Years passed. Andrei waited. He was afraid. He feared getting caught. But when he saw no one suspected him, his courage grew. In 1982, he hunted again. A journalist who visited one of those forests years later wrote, "Standing there, looking around, I could feel something in the air. Something dark, something heavy, like the spirits of those children are still there, still waiting for someone to come and calm them." Many others who visited those sites felt the same. They said the forests give off an unnatural vibe, as if the ground itself remembers what happened. The Andrei Chikatilo case inspired countless books, documentaries, and films. Writers and filmmakers tried to tell his story, to understand what turned him into a monster. But none of these works could capture the full truth. Because the truth is, no one can really understand what was going on in Chikatilo's mind. No one can comprehend how a human could be so merciless. Some say he was sick. Some say he was a devil. This time, a 17-year-old girl named Larisa Tekencho. She was waiting at a bus station. Andrei approached her and said, "Sweetie, are you going to the city too? I have a car. I can give you a ride." Larisa said, "No thanks." Andrei smiled and said, "Are you sure? It's going to rain. You'll get wet." Larisa looked at the sky. The clouds were dark. She said, "Okay, thanks." Andrei took her in his car, but instead of the city, he drove toward the woods. Larissa said, "This isn't the way. Why are you coming this way?" Andrei said, "It's a shortcut." Larissa felt like something wasn't right. She said, "I want to get out." Andrei looked at her and said, "You can't." He stopped the car. Larissa opened the door and started running. Andrei got out and chased her. He was faster. He caught her and threw her to the ground. Larissa screamed, "Help! Help me!" But no one was there. Only trees. "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request." Went home as if nothing had happened. But this time, he didn't stop. It was like his childhood nightmare had now become reality. The Soviet police began to find the bodies. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20. The number of victims kept rising, but no one could find the killer. After every murder, Andrei didn't feel guilty, just felt peace, like some pressure had been released inside him. But that peace never lasted. A few weeks later, the urge came back, stronger than before. He knew he was crazy. He knew something was wrong with him, but he couldn't stop it. It was something inside him, something that was a part of him, someone who was vulnerable, a kid who'd strayed too far from their family, a woman coming home late at night. He'd talk to them, be kind, smile, gain their trust, and then lead them to their death. It was June 1983. Rostov was sweltering, the streets packed with people, kids running around in the parks. That day, Andrei ducked out of school early, said he had a headache. Truth was, the itch inside him had woken up again. He went to the train station, the kind of place that's always crowded, the kind of place where nobody pays you a second glance. There, he spotted a little boy, maybe 12, no one with him, a backpack slung on his shoulders. The kid glanced around. "No one to ask," said, "Okay." Andrei put him in the car, but instead of heading to the village, he turned toward the woods. "This isn't the way," the boy said. "Shortcut," Andrei lied. The kid started to panic. "I want to go back," he said. Andrei didn't bother answering. He slammed the brakes, yanked the kid out, and the boy screamed, "Let me go! Let me go!" But Andrei clamped a hand over his mouth and hauled him into the trees. The kid tried to run, but Andrei was stronger, threw him to the ground, and ripped at his clothes. The boy cried and begged, "Please, I didn't do anything. I just want to go home." Andrei looked down and said, "You don't have a home anymore." He pulled out a knife and began. The boy screamed, but the forest swallowed the sound. Andrei stabbed him over and over, blood seeping onto the leaves, onto the earth, onto his own head. This time, he was faster. He'd learned how to leave no trace, how to burn his clothes, how to pick spots where no one would see him. He'd become a professional at killing. Months passed. and he hunted again. This time, it was a 9-year-old named Irina Donanenkova, walking home from school. Andrei spotted her and said, "Sweetie, your mom asked me to pick you up. There's an emergency." Irina looked at him. "Who are you?" Andrei smiled. "I'm a friend of your dad. Come on, hurry up. Your mom's worried." Irina hesitated, but recognized him, another teacher from the area she'd seen before. "Okay," he put her in the car and drove toward the woods. "This isn't the way to our house," Irina protested. "I know," Andrei said. She got scared. "I want to get out," she cried. Andrei grabbed her hand. "No, you can't." He dragged her into the trees. Irina screamed, tried to run, but he held her and began to beat her. She sobbed, "I won't tell anyone. I promise. Please, let me go." Andrei looked at her and said, "Too late." He pulled out the knife and started. Irina screamed, but nobody came. He killed her, saw her blood, carved into the flesh, and even took parts of her with him. He wasn't just a killer anymore. He had become a torturer, a cannibal. The next day, Irina's mother called the police. Her daughter hadn't come home. The search began. 3 days later, they found Irina's body in the woods. Mutilated, torn apart, parts missing. The police were Rostov's police formed a special team. They started combing through all the bodies found over the past few years and noticed a pattern. Victims killed the same way, found in forests, eyes removed, stomachs gutted. It was one person, a serial killer who'd hunted in silence for years. But the Soviet Union didn't want to admit that. The leaders called serial killers a Western sickness, a capitalist disease, something that doesn't happen in a socialist country. So the police had to work quietly. No press, no public warnings, no help from the crowd. They had to catch the killer on their own. By 1984, Andrei kept killing. He didn't even bother pretending at a normal life anymore. His wife, Feodosia, knew something was wrong. She saw him slipping out at night. It'd see his clothes come back sometimes, dirty. He noticed he wasn't talking to her anymore, but she never asked why. She never questioned it. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she didn't want to know. She just stayed silent. In August of that same year, Andrei killed a 16-year-old girl named Ludmila Alexandrovna. She was out riding her bike. Andrei saw her and started following. He yelled, "Girl, your bike's flat." Ludmila looked and saw something wasn't right. She tried to pedal faster, but Andrei blocked her with his car. He got out of the car and said, "Why are you running away? I just wanted to help." Ludmila said, "I don't need help." Andrei moved closer. Ludmila jumped off her bike and started running. But Andrei was faster. He caught her and dragged her into the woods. Ludmila fought. She was stronger than the others. She punched Andrei in the face. She clawed at his eyes. Andrei screamed from the pain, but he didn't let go. He threw her to the ground and wrapped his hand around her throat with all his strength. Ludmila's breaths cut short. Her eyes turned red. Then Andrei pulled out a knife. He started cutting and cutting. Blood was everywhere. on the trees, on the leaves, on the ground. When it was over, Andrei went back to his car. He was covered in blood. His face was scratched up. His clothes were torn. He looked at himself in the mirror, and for the first time, he saw something in his eyes. Fear. He knew he was getting sloppy. He knew the police were closing in, but he couldn't stop. He couldn't control himself. In the summer of 1984, the Rostov police assigned Colonel Viktor Borakov to the case. Borakov was a serious, experienced man. When he read through the files, he was shocked. 33 bodies had been found. 33 people were dead, and there were no clues. He assembled a large team, sending hundreds of officers to train stations, bus stops, and public places. They started checking out suspicious individuals, taking reports, photos, names, and details. One of those days, Andrei Chikatilo was stopped at a bus station. A cop saw him following a young woman. The officer approached and said, "Your papers." Andrei handed them over. The officer looked at them and asked, "What are you doing here?" Andrei smiled and said, "Just waiting for the bus. I'm heading home." But that officer filed a report. He wrote that he had seen a suspicious man following a woman. Andrei's name was logged, but amid thousands of other names, he got lost. No one paid him any mind. By 1985, Andrei wasn't even trying to hide anymore. He was killing almost every month, sometimes 2 people. He attacked a 20-year-old named Natalia Poklitskaya. She was at the train station. Andrei said, "Hey, you going to Rostov?" Natalia said, "Yes." Andrei said, "Me too." When Natalia got off the train, Andrei followed. She started running. He chased her. He caught her in a dark alley. Natalia screamed, "Help! Help!" But no one was around. Andrei threw her to the ground and covered her mouth. "Shut up, or it'll get worse," he said. Natalia was crying. She begged, "Please, I have a family. I have a life." Andrei looked at her and said, "I have a family too." He pulled out a knife and started. He killed her, tore her apart, and walked away. Borakov consulted with psychologists. They built a profile of the killer. They said he was a middle-aged man, probably married, had a regular job, looked normal, a person who blended into society. No one would suspect him. They said he had a sexual disorder. He couldn't have normal relationships, so he turned to violence. They said he had probably been hurt as a child. He had witnessed violence. He'd gone through traumatic experiences. But that profile was too general. Thousands of men in Rostov matched that description. The police didn't know where to start. In 1986, Andrei attacked a 16-year-old boy named Dima Pedashov. The boy was at the train station. Andrei approached him and said, "Hey, where are you going?" Dima replied, "I'm going home." Andrei said, Want to do a job for me? It's an easy job. I'll pay well. Dima looked at him. He came from a poor family. He desperately needed money. He said, "What kind of job?" Andrei said, "You just have to come help me move something." Dima said, "Okay." Andrei took him to the woods. Dima asked, "What are we moving here?" Andrei looked at him and said, "Nothing." Dima realized something was off. He started running, but Andrei caught him. Dima fought back. He was strong. He punched Andrei in the stomach. Andrei bent over from the pain, but didn't let go. He threw Dima to the ground and started choking him. Dima tried to breathe, but couldn't. His vision was going black. And then, Andrei pulled out a knife. Dima, with his last strength, begged, "Please, I'm still a kid." Andrei looked at him and said, "I was a kid once too." He shoved the knife in. Once, twice, 10 times. Dima didn't move anymore. His blood was spilled on the ground. Andrei stood there for a moment, looking at the body. For the first time, he felt something like regret, but only for a moment. Then that feeling passed, and he felt like he had done something right. He left the body and went back to his normal life. He went home, ate dinner, talked to his kids, and that night he lay in bed and slept, a peaceful sleep without nightmares. In September of 1986, Andrei was looking for his next victim. He went to the bus station near the market, a place that was always crowded, a place where young women came to shop. He spotted an 18-year-old girl named Irina Luchinskaya. She was holding a shopping bag and waiting for the bus. Andrei approached her and asked, "Hey, do you know which bus goes to Lenin Street?" Irina looked at him and said, "Yeah, number 5. Andrei smiled and said, "Thanks. Are you going that way too?" Irina replied, "No, I'm going somewhere else." Andrei nodded and stepped back a bit, but he still kept an eye on her. When the bus arrived, Irina got on. Andrei followed her. He sat behind her and watched her. Irina felt someone staring at her. She turned around and saw Andrei. He smiled. Irina quickly turned back and looked out the window. A few stops later, Irina got off. Andrei followed. Irina started walking toward her house. Andrei followed her. Irina felt like she was being followed. She picked up her pace. Andrei did too. Irina turned around and saw the man still behind her. She started running. Andrei chased after her. He dragged her further into the woods where no sounds could be heard. Irina cried. She begged, "Please, I haven't done anything. Why are you doing this?" Andrei looked at her and said, "Because I can." He threw her to the ground and started tearing at her clothes. Irina tried to fight, but he slapped her hard, dazing her. Andrei tried to assault her, but couldn't. The anger inside him flared up. He pulled out a knife. Irina shut her eyes and said, "God help me." Andrei said, "God isn't here." He stabbed her. Irina screamed. Blood poured from her body. Andrei stabbed her again. And again. And again. He stopped counting. He just kept cutting. He just kept killing. And when it was over, he sat down on the ground, panting. His hands were covered in blood. His clothes were stained with it, but he felt at peace. He stood up and went to his car. The old man was gone. Maybe he had gone to report it to the police. Maybe he had just been scared and ran away. Andrei didn't care. He got in his car and drove home. When he arrived, Feodosia was in the kitchen. She looked at her husband and asked, "Where have you been?" Andrei replied, "At work." Feodosia didn't look at his bloody clothes. Or maybe she did, but didn't say anything. She just nodded and went back to what she was doing. Andrei went to the bathroom. He took a shower. He washed the blood off his body. He put his clothes in a bag to burn later. He looked in the mirror. He looked at his face. He didn't recognize himself anymore. He didn't know who he was, but he didn't care. All he knew was that he had to keep going. He had to hunt again. The police found Irina's body the next day. The old man told the police he had seen a man killing the girl. He gave a description. A middle-aged man, glasses, thinning hair. But this description matched thousands of other men in Rostov. The police were confused again. Borakov decided to change his tactics. He ordered all train and bus stations to be monitored. He moved undercover cops around to identify suspicious individuals. He knew the killer had to be using these stations. He knew the killer must be finding his victims there. And again, Andrei Chikatilo was spotted at one of these stations. This time, the police noticed him following a teenage boy. November 1986. Andrei was looking for his next victim. He went to the Central Park in Rostov. The weather was cold, and light snow was falling. There were fewer people in the park. He spotted a 30-year-old woman named Svetlana Korenkova. She was sitting alone on a bench, smoking a cigarette. Andrei approached her and asked, "Excuse me, do you have a lighter?" Svetlana looked at him and said, "Yeah," and handed him the lighter. Andrei lit a cigarette and sat down next to her. He said, "It's so cold. Why are you sitting here?" Svetlana replied, "I just want to be alone for a while." Andrei nodded and said, "I feel the same way. Sometimes you just need to get away from everything." Svetlana looked at him and said, "You're right." They sat in silence for a while. Then Andrei said, "Do you want to go somewhere warmer? I have a little house nearby. We can have some tea." Svetlana looked at him. There was something about him that made her uneasy, but she was alone. She had no one else. She said, "I don't know." Andrei took her to the same old shack near the woods where he had taken his previous victims. When they entered, Svetlana saw that the shack was empty. There was no furniture, no warmth. She said, "This isn't a home." Andrei shut the door. Svetlana turned around and said, "What are you doing?" Andrei looked at her and said, "You shouldn't have come here." Svetlana was scared. She ran toward the door, but Andrei blocked her path. She screamed, "Let me go!" Andrei put his hand over her mouth and pushed her to the ground. Svetlana tried to fight, but he punched her hard, breaking her nose. Blood spilled from her nose. Svetlana cried, "Please, I have children. I need to get home." Andrei looked at her and said, "You don't have a home anymore." He took out a knife. Svetlana shut her eyes and began to pray. "God, God." Andrei said, "God can't help you." He stabbed her. Svetlana screamed. Blood spilled onto the ground. Andrei stabbed her again and again. He no longer felt anything. He just kept cutting, just kept killing. And when it was over, he sat down and looked at her body. Svetlana's face was unrecognizable. Her body was dismembered. Andrei stood up and left. He left the body there. He didn't even try to hide it. It was as if he wanted the police to find him. It was as if he wanted this game to end. The next day, Svetlana's body was found. The police were horrified. This was the 40th victim. 40 people had been killed, and no one still knew who the killer was. Borakov went to the KGB leaders and said, "We need more help. This killer is going crazy. He's killing more people." The leaders replied, "You need to find him. This is a disgrace for the Soviet Union." Borakov said, "I'm doing everything I can, but he's too smart." Borakov decided to consult with a famous psychologist named Alexander Bukhanovsky. Bukhanovsky read the case files and created a more detailed profile of the killer. He said, "This man is probably a teacher or a government worker. He has an ordinary appearance and is integrated into society. He suffers from severe sexual disorders and cannot have a normal relationship. That's why he resorts to violence. He's likely married with children. He was abused in childhood and witnessed violence. He selects his victims from public stations and takes them to the woods. He gouges out their eyes because he cannot stand their gaze. He is a sexual sadist who can only be satisfied through violence and murder." This profile was more accurate, but it still wasn't enough. They still couldn't find the killer. By 1987, years had passed. Andrei continued killing. Every time that dark craving inside him woke up, he went out hunting for another victim. Children, women, young boys, no one was safe. But in 1989, something happened. The police spotted Andrei again at a train station. This time, he was following a little girl. An officer walked up to him and said, "You again? Why do you keep hanging around train stations?" Andrei said, "I'm just traveling. Is there a problem?" The cop said, "Yeah, the problem is, we've seen you multiple times following kids around." Andrei got tense. "I'm not following anyone. That's a ridiculous accusation. The officer said, "Then why were you just following that girl?" Andrei said, "I was heading toward the train. It's just a coincidence." They took him to the station for questioning. Andrei stayed calm. His answers sounded logical. He said he was a teacher, a party member, a husband and father. He said all these accusations were baseless. So then, in 1990, he started again. This time, he went to another city, Novocherkassk. He thought it would be safer there. He lured a 10-year-old boy named Vita Tishenko with the promise of money. Vita asked, "You're really gonna pay me?" Andrei said, "Yeah, I just need your help with something simple." Vita went with him and never came back. His body was found 3 days later, mutilated. The Novocherkassk police sent the case to Burakov. The moment Burakov saw the body, he knew the killer was back. Burakov ordered surveillance on all train and bus stations in Rostov and nearby cities. He knew the killer would strike again. He knew the man couldn't control himself. Then, in November 1990, a police officer named Igor Rybakov was stationed at a small train stop near Rostov. His orders were clear: check out any suspicious men. That day, he saw a man coming out of the woods. His clothes were filthy, his face was sweaty, and his hands were shaking. Rybakov approached him and said, "Excuse me, can I see your ID?" The man looked up. His eyes were tired. He handed over his documents. Rybakov read the name, Andrei Chikatilo. Rybakov realized he'd heard that name before. He asked, "What were you doing in the forest?" Andrei said, "Just taking a walk." Rybakov looked at his dirty clothes and said, "You're pretty filthy for a walk." Andrei said, "I fell on the ground." And Rybakov had a gut feeling. "Please come with me," he said. Andrei replied, "Why? I haven't done anything." Rybakov said, "I just need to ask you a few questions." He brought Andrei to the station. When Burakov heard that Andrei Chikatilo had been arrested, he rushed there immediately. He'd seen Andrei's file before. He knew this was the same man who'd shown up suspiciously 3 times. Deep down, he could feel it. This was the one. Burakov ordered a search of the forest. The officers went out, and an hour later, they found the body of a young boy, fresh, still bleeding. The body belonged to Vitaly Porvit, an 11-year-old who had gone missing that very morning. Burakov walked into the interrogation room. Andrei was sitting calmly, his hands folded on the table. Burakov said, "Mr. Chikatilo, we found the body of a little boy in the same woods you were seen coming out of." Andrei said, "I was just walking there. I didn't see anything." Burakov sat down and said, "You've been seen acting suspiciously in train stations 3 times. You're a teacher. You match the exact profile of our killer." Andrei said, "That doesn't prove anything. I'm innocent." Burakov knew he was the killer. He could see it. He could feel it. But he needed proof. He needed a confession. And here's the sanitized, conversational English translation. I kept the narrative detail, tone, and pacing, but I removed explicit sexual descriptions involving minors and softened anything that would be disallowed. Borakov walked out of the interrogation room and told his team, "We need to know everything about this man. Check his house, check his workplace, talk to his wife, talk to his co-workers, find anything you can." The officers left. They went to Andrei's home. Feodosia opened the door, and when she saw the police, she was stunned. They said, "We need to search the house." Feodosia asked, "Why? What has my husband done?" The officers didn't answer. They went inside and started searching. They found bloody clothes. They found knives. They found a leather bag that held rope, gloves, and a few other items. Theodosia stared at them, not understanding. She said, "What is all this?" One of the officers looked at her and asked, "You really had no idea?" Feodosia began to cry. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." The police took her in for questioning. Theodosia told them that her husband had been going out at night. She said his clothes came back dirty sometimes. She said he had acted strangely for years, but she never imagined he could be a killer. Maybe she thought he had a lover, maybe he had another problem, but never that he could be a monster. The police went to the school where Andrei worked. They talked to former students. Some of them said Andrei had behaved inappropriately. He got too close to girls. He stood too near. He gave odd looks. People shrugged it off. Borakov gathered all that information and returned to the interrogation room. He looked at Andrei and said, "We found bloody clothes in your house. We found knives. We found everything." Andrei was silent. Borakov said, "You can deny it, but we know you're a killer." For the first time, Andrei smiled. A cold, horrific smile. He said, "Well, if you know, then why are you still asking questions?" Borakov felt a coldness run down his spine. He realized the man had stopped hiding. He realized the man was ready to talk. But Andrei fell silent again. "I want a lawyer," he said. Borakov replied, "You have the right to a lawyer, but I want you to talk to me. I want to know why you did these things." Andrei looked at him and said, "You'll never understand." Borakov tried another tack. He brought a psychologist into the room. The psychologist spoke to Andrei, trying to gain his trust. "I want to understand what pushed you to do this," the psychologist said. "I want to help you." Andrei laughed. "Help? You can't help me. No one can." The psychologist suggested, "Maybe if you talk, you'll feel better." Andrei looked at him. "I don't want to feel better. I just want it to end." The psychologist saw that Andrei was tired of running, tired of hiding. He wanted it to be over. The next day, Borakov returned to the interrogation room alone. He looked at Andrei and said, "Andrei, I know you're tired. I know you don't want this game to go on. So why not tell everything? Why not lay it all out?" Andrei stared for a moment, then began to speak. He said, "The first time I killed was a little girl. Her name was Lena. I took her to the little shack. I wanted to, but I couldn't, so I killed her." Borakov sat quietly, and listened. Andrei went on. After that, I couldn't control myself. If I saw a child alone or a woman on her own, I couldn't stop myself. I had to go. I had to kill. How many did you kill? Borakov asked. Andrei fought and said, I don't know. Maybe 50, maybe more. Borakov was stunned. He knew the number was large, but 50? That was more than he'd imagined. He asked, why did you take their eyes? Andrei said, because I couldn't stand their gaze. Their eyes drove me mad. Borakov asked, why did you sometimes take parts of their bodies? Andrei was silent for a moment, then said, because I wanted to feel power. I wanted to feel alive. Borakov realized this man was sick. He wasn't a villain who simply calculated each move. He was mentally ill in a way that made him unable to control himself. Over the following days, Andrei began to describe each killing in detail. He named victims. He gave dates. He gave locations. He told everything. The police were shocked. Some of the victims turned out to be people they didn't even know were dead. Families had thought a child had run away or gone missing, but now they realized those people were dead. Andrei told the police he didn't know why he did it. He said something inside him made him do it. He said he tried to fight it, but he couldn't. He said that after every killing, he didn't feel regret. He just felt calm. Borakov asked him, didn't you ever think what you were doing was wrong? Andrei said, yeah, I did, but I couldn't stop it. It was stronger than me. Borakov asked, didn't you think about your family? Andrei said, yeah, I did. But when that urge woke up inside me, nothing else mattered. In one of the interrogation sessions, Borakov asked, why'd you take them to the forest? Andrei said, because the forest was quiet. Nobody was there. Nobody could hear them scream. Borakov asked, what did you think about when you were killing them? Andrei went silent, then said, I didn't think about anything. I just felt alive. These interrogations went on for weeks. Andrei told them everything. He took the police to the spots where he left the bodies. He showed them how he killed. He revealed it all. And in the end, the police discovered that Andrei Chikatilo was responsible for 53 murders. 53 children, women, and young boys killed in the most brutal way imaginable. The interrogations continued. Day by day, Andrei spoke more and more. It was as if he needed to spill everything out. Years of secrets he had kept buried inside were now too heavy to hold. One day, Borakov asked, Andrei, when did the thought first come to your mind that you might want to kill someone? Andrei looked up at the ceiling and said, when I was little, my mother told me I had a brother that the neighbors ate. That story always stayed in my mind. I always wondered how a person could eat another person, and then I understood myself. Borakov asked, so you actually ate parts of your victims? Andrei lowered his head and said, "Yes, sometimes, when I was highly aroused, I couldn't control myself." Rostov felt nauseated. He had been a police officer for years, seen many crimes, but this was something else. This was no longer human. This was a monster. Burakov asked, "When you were at home with your wife and children, how did you feel?" Andrei said, "Nothing. I felt nothing. I always felt elsewhere, like I wasn't really there, like I was in a movie watching myself." Burakov asked, "Did your children know?" Andrei shook his head. "No, nobody knew. I hid it very well. I always smiled, always seemed kind. Nobody suspected a thing." This was the truth. Andrei Chikatilo was an ordinary citizen. Every day he woke up, had breakfast, went to work, taught the children, came home in the evening, ate dinner, and slept. And in between all this, he went out and killed. Psychologist Buchanovsky held several sessions with Andrei, trying to understand what went on in his mind. He asked, "Andrei, when you were killing, did you feel you were doing something wrong?" Andrei said, "In the moment, no. But afterward, sometimes I thought about what I'd done. But the feeling quickly passed." Buchanovsky asked, "Why were most of your victims children?" Andrei said, "Because children are more vulnerable, easier to approach, easier to deceive." Buchanovsky asked, "Do you feel that you are sick?" Andrei looked at him and said, "Yes, I know something in my head isn't right. I know something is wrong with me, but I couldn't stop it." After several sessions, Buchanovsky wrote his report. Andrei Chikatilo is a sexual sadist with severe psychological disorders. He suffered deep psychological trauma in childhood, which prevented him from forming healthy relationships. Instead of natural sexual relations, he turned to violence and murder. He is incapable of empathy and sees his victims as objects, not humans. He is a dangerous psychopath who must be separated from society. News of Andrei Chikatilo's arrest gradually spread across the Soviet Union. People were shocked. No one could believe that a teacher, a party member, a family man could commit such acts. When the families of the victims learned the fate of their children, they fell apart. Some mothers went insane. Some fathers committed suicide. Their grief was indescribable. One mother, Ludmila, whose 9-year-old daughter had been killed, came to court and screamed, "I want to kill him myself. I want to take his life with my own hands." Police had to remove her. Her cries echoed through the hallways. Another father, Mikhail, whose 12-year-old son was murdered, told reporters, "Every day I pray that that damn man dies. I don't want him to live. I want him to feel the same pain he caused my son." When Andrei heard these words, he didn't react. He sat silently, staring at the wall, as if none of it mattered. In one interrogation, Burakov asked, "Andrei, you don't feel any remorse?" Andrei looked at him and said, "Yes, I do, but not in the way you think. I only regret getting caught." Burakov, furious, said, "So, you don't even think about the innocent children you killed?" Andrei said, I do. But what can I do? They're dead. I can't bring them back. Andrei's indifference drove the police insane. They could not comprehend how a human could be so devoid of feeling. Burakov decided to take Andrei to the crime scenes. He wanted to see if visiting these places would stir any emotion in him. They put Andrei in the car and drove him to the first forest where he had killed his victim. Andrei got out of the car and looked around. He said, "Yeah, it was here. I took her to that corner by the big tree." The police followed him. Andrei led them to the exact spot. "Here, right here," he said. Burakov looked at him and asked, "Now that you're here, what do you feel?" Andrei thought for a moment and said, "Nothing. It's just a forest." Burakov couldn't control himself. He shouted, "A forest? This is where you killed a little girl. This is where you destroyed a life." Andrei looked at him and said, "I know, but I can't feel it." Burakov realized that no matter how hard he tried, he could not draw any remorse from Andrei. He was a man whose feelings were dead. He was no longer human. Before the trial, Andrei was sent to a psychiatric hospital for testing. Andrei's children, a grown son and daughter, changed their last name. They didn't want anyone to know they were the children of the Rostov butcher. They tried to start a new life, far from everything, far from the past. But the past didn't let them go. People always found out. Someone would always say, "Those are Chikatilo's kids." And they were forced to flee again. April 1992. The trial of Andrei Chikatilo kicked off. The venue? The city courthouse in Rostov. The courtroom was packed. Families of the victims, journalists, government officials. Everyone wanted a glimpse at this monster, to see what he looked like. When Andrei was brought in, people were stunned. The guy looked normal. Average height, thinning gray hair, round glasses, plain clothes. Not a shred of serial killer vibe about him. He looked more like a school teacher, a government worker. Just your everyday Joe, but the cops had him locked up in an iron cage, right smack in the middle of the courtroom. They did this for security, worried the victims' families might try to attack him. Andrei stood in the cage, scanning the room. He looked at the families, the journalists, the judge. His face? Blank. Like he didn't give a damn. The judge, Leonid Akobzanov, called the court to order. He said, "Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo, you are accused of the murder of 53 people, rape, torture, and cannibalism. Do you plead guilty to these charges?" Andrei looked at the judge and said, "Yes." Chaos erupted in the courtroom. Mothers began to sob. Fathers shouted, "Murderer! Monster! Death to you!" The police scrambled to restore order. The judge slammed his gavel and yelled, "Silence! Silence!" Once things calmed down, the judge said, "All right, now we want you to explain why you did these things." Andrei looked at him and said, "I don't know why. I just couldn't control myself." The judge asked, "So you're saying you were forced?" "No, I wasn't forced, but I couldn't stop it," Andrei replied. The prosecutor, Alexei Mikhailov, stood up and said, "Mr. Chikatilo, You claim you couldn't control yourself. But you did this for years. You planned it. You picked your victims. You took them into the woods. That shows you knew exactly what you were doing. Andrei stayed silent for a moment, then said, "Yeah, I knew, but I couldn't stop myself." Mikhailov continued, "So you admit you're responsible for these crimes?" "Yes, I'm responsible," Andrei said. Then Mikhailov started reading the list of victims, one by one, names, ages, dates of death. It took nearly an hour. Each time a name was called, a family member would burst into tears. Andrei stood in his cage, listening. His face stayed neutral, like he was hearing a grocery list, not the names of people he'd murdered. One mother, Anna, couldn't hold back. She stood up and screamed. Andrei looked at her and said, "I'm sorry." "Sorry? You think sorry is enough? You ruined my life," she shouted. The police dragged her out, her crying echoing down the hallway. The trial dragged on for months. Every day, new witnesses came forward. Cops who arrested him, psychologists who examined him, families who lost children. Everyone came to testify. One witness, a young girl named Maria, had narrowly escaped becoming a victim. She told the court, "I was walking home from school when a man came up to me, saying he wanted to help. But I got a bad feeling. I started running. He chased me, but I got away. If I hadn't run that day, I wouldn't be here now." Andrei looked at her, nodded, and said, "Glad you got away." "You don't get to say anything! You're a monster!" Maria yelled. Andrei looked at the photos and didn't flinch, like he was staring at pictures of nature. The judge asked him, "Mr. Chikatilo, you see these photos and feel nothing?" Andrei looked back. "I don't feel anymore. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel." The judge shook his head. "You're an emotionless creature." The trial went on. Day by day, more details of Andrei's crimes came out. Day by day, the family's pain grew. One day, Andrei's lawyer tried to defend him. His lawyer said, "My client is a mentally ill man. He couldn't control himself. He needs treatment, not punishment." But the prosecutor shouted back. In one of the final sessions, the judge asked Andrei, "Do you have anything to say? Do you want to apologize to the families of your victims?" "I couldn't control myself." One of the fathers stood up and shouted, "We don't want your apology. We want you dead." The rest of the families joined in, screaming, "Death, death, death." The judge slammed his gavel and yelled, "Silence!" Then he looked at Andrei and said, "The court has reached its decision. The verdict will be announced soon." October 15th, 1992. The day the sentence was announced. The courtroom was packed tighter than any day before. Everybody wanted to hear what the judge was gonna say. And let's be honest, Everybody already figured there was only one real outcome: death. They brought Andrei back into that iron cage. Same plain clothes. His face looked worn out, like he didn't even have the strength to stand up straight. Judge Akobzhanov walked in, and the room stood. He sat, shuffled the papers, and a heavy, heavy hush fell over the place. You could feel every heartbeat waiting. He cleared his throat and read the verdict out loud. Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo, this court finds you guilty of 52 counts of murder, rape, torture, and other crimes. He paused. You could hear the family's breaths in the room. The judge went on. The crimes you committed are beyond any decent description. You brutally murdered 52 people, most of them children and young women. You tortured them, dismembered them, and took pleasure in their pain. You showed no mercy. You offered no repentance. Andrei stood in the cage with his head down. The judge continued. This court finds you a danger to society, and that you must be removed from it forever. Therefore, this court sentences you to death. The courtroom erupted. Some families cheered, some sobbed, some clapped, some yelled, "Justice! Justice!" The cops tried to keep order, but this time they couldn't hold it together. Andrei lifted his head and looked at the judge. He said nothing, just a small nod, like he accepted it, like he'd known all along that was the only way out. His lawyer jumped up. "We will appeal." The judge, "Your appeal will be noted, but I am confident the sentence will stand." They hauled Andrei out. Families crowded the cage, screaming, "Hell's waiting for you. Burn. Feel the pain you gave our kids." For the first time, something like fear flickered in his eyes. He knew his time was up. There was no more running. They took him back to prison. While he waited for execution, he was kept in solitary. He stopped speaking. He just lay on his bunk and stared at the ceiling. Once a guard asked, "Chikatilo, what are you thinking about?" Without looking up, Andrei said, "Nothing, just waiting for it to end." Days crawled by. He got thinner every day, ate less, spoke less, just waited. Nobody from his family came to see him. Feodosia said she couldn't bear to look at his face. His kids said he wasn't their father anymore. He was utterly alone. A priest came once, sat with him. "Son, I'm here to help. Do you want to confess?" The priest asked. Andrei looked at him and said, "Confess for what? I'm ruined. God doesn't want me." The priest said, "God forgives everyone, even you." Andrei gave a bitter, hollow laugh. "If God forgives me, why didn't he stop me first? Why let me kill all those children?" The priest had no answer. He just put a hand on Andrei's shoulder and said, "God works in ways we don't understand." Andrei shrugged the hand off. "Go. I don't need God," he said. The priest left. Andrei was alone again. February 14th, 1994, Execution Day. He woke up knowing it was the last morning he'd see. He got up, looked in the tiny cell mirror, and barely recognized the man staring back. A gaunt face, hollow eyes, hair gone white. He whispered to himself, "Is this me? Is that really me?" Guards came, opened the cell. One said. Andrei nodded and walked with them. The corridor was long and dark. Their footsteps echoed like a clock. They led him into a small white room. In the middle sat a single chair. He knew exactly what that chair was for. "Sit," one guard told him. He sat. He just nodded. The man said, "All right, then let's begin." Two guards stepped forward and bound Andrei's hands. He started trembling, felt like his heart was going to burst. He asked himself, is this the pain they felt? Is this the fear they felt? One of the guards moved behind him. He had a rifle. By Soviet law, executions were done with a shot to the back of the head. Andrei shut his eyes. He thought of everyone he'd killed, saw their faces, heard their screams. For the first time, real regret hit him. But it was too late. The guard got ready. He put the rifle to the back of Andrei's head. Andrei drew a deep breath. His last breath. A shot cracked through the room. Andrei collapsed. Blood came from his head. He didn't move. He was dead. The guard lowered the rifle and said, "It's over." They carried Andrei's body out. They buried him in an unmarked grave. No headstone, no name. He was supposed to be forgotten, but he wasn't. The name Andrei Chikatilo stayed burned into the annals of crime. He's remembered as one of the worst serial killers in history. The news of Andrei Chikatilo's death spread fast across Russia and out into the world. Papers ran giant headlines. Rostov Butcher executed. The Soviet monster is gone. Final justice for 52 victims. Folks in Rostov and the nearby towns felt a weight lift off their shoulders. They figured, with Andrei dead, the nightmare was over. But for the victims' families, the nightmare never ended. Andrei's death couldn't bring their children back. It couldn't heal the pain. It couldn't fill the hole left in their lives. Lena Zakatenova's mother. Lena was Andrei's first victim. Told reporters, "I'm glad he's dead, but that death won't bring my daughter back. I sleep with her photo every night. I dream of her screaming, calling for help, and I can't help her." One father, Sergei, said bluntly, "I wished they'd let me kill him myself. I wanted to take his life with my own hands. I wanted to see him die. They didn't even let me have that." Some families never found a normal life again. Some turned to booze. Some to drugs. Some took their own lives. The pain of losing a child is unbearable, and it never really goes away. Theodosia, Andrei's wife, tried to piece a life back together after his execution. She changed her last name and moved to another town. She tried to forget. She couldn't. Years later, she told an interviewer, "I still wake up at night and ask myself, how did I live with a monster and not know? How did I sleep beside him, eat with him, raise our kids, and not see a thing? She added, I tell myself I'm a victim too. I didn't know. But sometimes I feel like maybe I should have seen it. Maybe I should have asked more questions. Maybe if I had paid more attention, I could have stopped him and those kids would still be alive. That guilt haunted her for the rest of her life. She never forgave herself. Andrei's children, Yudif and Lyudmila, tried to carry on after their father's death. They changed their surname, got married, had kids of their own. Still, their father's shadow never really left them. Yudif said in an interview, I never told my children who their grandfather was. I don't want them carrying that burden. They deserve a normal life. He went on, sometimes I think about the man I thought I knew. The guy who taught me, who told me how to live. And then I realize it was all lies. That man didn't exist. My father was a monster. Lyudmila refused to talk about him at all. Every time a reporter showed up, she shut the door and ran away. Russian society, after the Chikatilo case, finally started talking about serial killers. Before that, the Soviet line had been that such phenomena don't happen in socialist countries. Now, everyone saw that was nonsense. Serial killers exist everywhere. Psychologists began studying Chikatilo's mind, trying to understand what turns a human into that kind of monster. They looked at his childhood, his family environment, his experiences. One noted psychologist, Dr. Alexander Bupanovsky, who worked on the case, said at a seminar, Andrei Chikatilo was the product of particular conditions. He faced famine, violence, and trauma as a child. He learned that violence solves problems. He learned that other people's pain could keep him alive. When he reached adulthood, he couldn't break that pattern. He added, but that doesn't mean we should excuse him. He had choices. He could have sought help. He could have stopped. He chose to continue. And for that choice, he had to be punished. After the arrest, the Rostov police overhauled their systems. They started keeping better records on suspicious individuals. They built databases and trained officers to spot worrying behavior. Colonel Borakov, who led the investigative team, was promoted after the capture. He became something of a national hero. In interviews, he said, "This case was the toughest I've ever worked on. I couldn't sleep at night. I kept thinking about those kids, about those families, and I knew I had to find Chikatilo. I had to stop him." He went on, "When we finally caught him, I didn't feel relieved. I just felt sorrow. Sorrow for all those lives that were lost. Sorrow that we couldn't stop him sooner." Borakov passed away in 2005 at the age of 73. Until the end of his life, he spoke about the Chikatilo case. He said it changed him, made him a different man. The places where Andrei killed his victims are now abandoned and forgotten. Forests that once witnessed horror are now quiet and empty. Sometimes people come and leave flowers. Sometimes families visit and pray. But most of the time, these places are alone.